the system was rigged in favor of GC strategies. So I have a question for this Liberal government. What kind of operation are you running over there?
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox.
We have learned this week will not result in much information around foreign interference in the public inquiry, as the focus seems to be around resolving challenges of making information received by the Commission as public as possible. So that is what the vast majority of speakers are actually talking about, raising points and then being asked questions by the lawyers representing the different parties. There will be another set of hearings in March, and then another set of hearings tentatively scheduled for September. We will continue to follow the hearings this week, so if there's anything significant that arises, be rest assured that we will inform you.
Now today, we are back to question period, where Justin Trudeau is already absent after just one day of debating with Pierre. Chrystia Freeland was left to pick up the slack.
Let's take a look.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
When the Prime Minister doubled the debt, drove inflation and interest rates to their highest levels in a generation, he said he had no choice. Every penny he spent was necessary. Along comes ArriveCan, a $54 million app we didn't need, didn't work, and could have been done for $200,000 or $300,000. Now we learn, based on the Ombudsman's audit, that 76% of the contractors did absolutely no work for the money they received. Will the Prime Minister get taxpayers back this stolen money and stop the waste that is not worth the cost?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
So it's nice to hear ArriveCan make its debut in the winter session of Parliament. And how nice that Pierre is citing the Ombudsman's report that was just released yesterday. And if you haven't seen our video on the Ombudsman's report, we dropped it early today at 9 a.m. So take a look at it, take a listen to it, whatever viewing or listening means that you want. And we expand on this, and it is significant. It's to the point where the Ombudsman is actually being called to committee tomorrow, and they're going to be answering questions on this report, and there's damning conclusions all throughout. It is not a good picture, A, for the government, B, for the CBSA, and C, for Cameron McDonald and Antonio Utano.
And we're going to be live streaming that tomorrow, which is Wednesday, January the 31st at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So please join us.
Bring your popcorn, bring your choice of drink, and it's going to be a good time, as it always is on Northern Perspective live streams in committee. And you'll learn a lot. So will we, because we are not actually going to be viewing the committee live, as is per our normal practice. We want to see it along with all of you. And it's a late committee this time. It goes from 4:30 until 6:30. So it actually won't be too long between the end of that committee hearing and the start of the live stream, thank goodness, this time. So no spoilers, everybody. Anyway, back to question period. What do you have to say about that, Chris? Probably nothing.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have learned through bitter experience that when Conservatives talk about the public finances, what they're really talking about is cutting the government support Canadians depend on.
Did you hear that? The support that Canadians depend on. Canadians are not supposed to be depending on the government for anything.
Yeah, and who created that dependence?
This is like a toxic relationship.
Yeah, it pretty much is. And the people that are still voting for the Liberals have like Stockholm syndrome or something.
Yeah, I think so.
What they are talking about is cutting early learning and childcare, which is supporting labor force participation at record levels in Canada, and by the way, making life more affordable for Canadian families. They want to cut dental care, Mr. Speaker. They want to cut essential investments in our green future.
Indeed.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Another thing she just said, there are record levels of participation in the workforce in Canada right now.
And that this child care program is supporting that.
But I think the reason why there are record levels of participation in the employment world is because people can't afford to live on even 2 incomes anymore. You know, I saw it again today in one of my Facebook groups, a mom asking for help to try to find a part-time job on the weekends so that her husband would be home with the children, and they both work full-time already, but it's not enough money and they're worried that they're going to lose their house.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
This is normal in Canada now, thanks to the Liberals.
And, you know, the other problem is that you have seniors that should be retired, that should be fishing, that should be vacationing, that should be traveling the world, or sitting on their asses and doing whatever the heck they want because they've earned it. Well, they can't do that anymore. They have to go back to work. And she's proud of that.
Disgusting.
We want to cut waste and mismanagement that has risen to a level that is not worth the cost after 8 years of this Prime Minister. Speaking of wasteful, this Prime Minister loves to lecture Canadians on how they use energy. He says that he's just like every other Canadian when he stays with a friend at an $89,000 a week vacation. The average Canadian emits 15 tons of carbon per year. His trip emitted 100 tons of carbon in 1 week. Did he pay the full carbon tax on each ton he emitted for his luxurious vacation?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Everyone say, wow, wow, wow.
It's
Wow.
true, though. That was insane that the average Canadian in a year emits 15 tons of carbon was the stat.
Yep.
And Trudeau on a single trip emitted 100.
Yep.
And he's the one lecturing us, and he's the one forcing us into poverty for climate change, for all these issues with, you know, carbon emissions and this and that. And he's more guilty than like 8 of us combined.
And he didn't pay a dime, not 1 cent for that vacation. And I bet he billed Canadians for the airfare just because he's a dick.
Mr. Speaker, since we're asking questions of MPs, I have a couple of questions for the Leader of the Opposition. I'd like to know how much heating the 19-room government mansion that he lives in costs. That would be interesting for Canadians to understand. And, you know, the good news for Canadians is we're helping them with the cost of heating with the carbon rebate. So I want to know, did his family cash their carbon rebate check? It's almost $1,000.
Pierre wouldn't have qualified for
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Pierre and his spouse make enough money that they wouldn't qualify for a carbon rebate.
And here's the other thing. So you want to talk about that, Christopher Freeland? You really want to go into that? Okay, let's go into that. So Pierre is staying in the house reserved for the Leader of the Official Opposition. Okay, fine. So that's 1 residence. Christian, why don't you tell us how much heating the Prime Minister's 4 houses cost? Because remember, he built a second one at Harrington Lake. So there's Sussex Drive, there's 2 on Harrington Lake, and he's staying at Rideau Hall. So that's 4 different massive houses that the Prime Minister is caring for. So you really want to do a 4-to-1 ratio? Okay.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I can tell the member that I pay for my own vacations and that of my family. And, Mr. Speaker, Canadians who pay for their own vacations are also paying too much for food. We have a bill, a common sense conservative bill, C-2, 3, 4, that would take the carbon tax off the farmers that feed us and the consumers that desperately need to put nutrition on their table. Will the Prime Minister stop blocking the bill, pass this law so that Canadians can afford food?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Okay, now some of you may be wondering, why didn't Pierre just retort with what the Prime Minister is staying in terms of his houses that the government provides?
Because that's our job.
Well, A, that's our job. And B, that would demonstrate that he's engaging in Chrystia Freeland's tactics.
Yeah, so it would be him acknowledging the ridiculous thing she just said.
Right. So rather than do that, you know, he's playing on his terms. And here's the other thing. It's not the job of the official opposition to answer questions in question period. That's the job of the government.
Which they never do.
No, and they're being so blatant to the point where they're not even answering questions. They're asking their own, which is ridiculous. This is actually a really good move for Pierre to actually bring this right back to answering his initial question, which is, yeah, I'm not even going to bother dignifying your quote-unquote question with a response. What I am going to do is demonstrate that, unlike the Prime Minister, I actually pay for my vacations for myself and my family. I don't put that on the taxpayer. So, very good response. And Pierre, you better continue to do that when you're the Prime Minister.
You know, Mr. Speaker, people who live in glass houses really should not throw stones. And the leader of the opposition may be bragging about what he pays for, but I think Canadians should understand he doesn't pay any rent on that 19-room mansion that he lives in. In fact, he's been on the government payroll for more than 20 years, and he qualified for a full pension at 35, Mr. Speaker. And now he wants to take the rebates away from Ontario families. $1,000 a year, he wants to take that away.
That was great.
Then I have the
Champagne leaning, that was really good. What? No, it wasn't. Like, okay, so essentially what Chrystia Freeland is saying is she's run out of ammunition to throw at Pierre, so now she's attacking every single MP in that house that has a government pension. Like, yeah, you also have a pension. Are you saying that you should give that back, Freeland? Maybe you should.
Well, I don't understand her point about the pension. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, maybe Pierre qualified when he turned 35, but he's not just going to go, all right, guys, I got my pension. I'm out of here. You know, he's not Jagmeet Singh.
Yeah, if he was about his pension, he could have just left at 35.
Well, and this to me shows that he's a man who cares about what he's doing, who's passionate about what he's doing, and wants to work for Canadians. He could have left at any time, but he's still there working for us.
Yeah. Unlike Chrystia Freeland, which will hopefully be on the unemployment line at the next election.
What do you get with 24 Liberal MPs in Toronto? A housing crisis. A Davenport MP that gaslights and attacks the city and the housing workers that are struggling to make sure people have a place to call home. Whether you were born here or moved here, no one should live on the streets. The city and the housing groups are just asking the Liberal government to do their fair share. So will the Liberals provide the $250 million that Toronto needs now?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
God, Julian is so terrible. Here.
Well, and do you hear the way the other MPs jeer whenever Jagmeet Singh stands up? Like, you do get it with some of the other ones, like Pierre and the Prime Minister and whatever, but it's very noticeable with Jagmeet Singh. None of the other MPs respect him.
No, and that's because he's sitting there in his like $2,000 suit, and he talks about, you know, oh, well, I'm here for the little people. He is so phony when he speaks. He may be an intelligent guy behind the scenes. We don't know. But he's very phony. He's extremely phony. I really can't wait for the debates. I can't, because Jagmeet is not good at thinking on his feet.
No,
Trudeau,
he's going to get crushed.
Trudeau is not good at thinking on his feet.
They're both going to get crushed. You know, I saw this comment in one of our videos last night, and it said, in regards to Justin Trudeau, but I suppose you could also apply it to Jagmeet Singh. So the two of them are like donkeys in a thoroughbred race against Pierre, who's a thoroughbred horse.
Yeah, and I can't wait to live stream those debates.
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that's going to be a party for sure.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
Another year means another carbon tax increase on April 1st. It was minus 50 in some places in this country where Canadians can't even afford to heat their homes. Yesterday, the finance minister lectured Canadians on her out-of-touch version of events, and then we learned that the Liberals were going to change the name of the carbon tax. Taking money out of the pockets of Canadians rebranded is still taking money out of their pockets. So instead of paying high-priced consultants to remove the carbon tax or change the carbon tax name, they should take some free advice and cancel it April 1st.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
So I'm glad that they brought this up again, because this is yet another reason why I don't think the NDP can afford to go past April. Because what happens in April, she just described it, the carbon tax ramps up even more. What does that mean? That means everyone is going to be paying even more for food, for gas, for heating, for everything. So that's going to be one more year of the noose just tightening that much more on Canadians. And it's bad now. The vitriol of Canadians is bad now as it relates to the carbon tax. I think that the last poll was something like 76% of Canadians don't want it anymore. So what is this going to look like in a year, Jagmeet? Because this carbon tax is going to take you down with it if you don't do something. So it's just one more factor in this equation that literally the NDP cannot afford to go past the end of April. They have to call an election, and they have to do it this spring.
Mr. Speaker, let me tell you what is really out of touch. What is out of touch is for a Toronto MP like the one sitting opposite to be saying to the people of Ontario, to the hardworking families of Ontario, we are going to take away the $974 you are getting back thanks to the price on pollution. We're going to cut that money that goes directly to your family budget. Oh, and by the way, we're going to cut daycare and dental care along the way too. That's not going to help anyone in Canada.
Let me tell you how this works, Freeland. So Canadian families will not need a quote-unquote carbon tax rebate because the Conservatives are going to cut the carbon tax. So you don't need the money back because the Conservatives...
They'll already have it.
Right, we won't be taking it in the first place. And then the other things, again, you say things like free dental care and $10 a day childcare. These things are funded by the taxpayer. So if the taxpayer is no longer funding them, then you are not taking those taxes away from the taxpayer.
Right. The point of this is to cut these badly managed government programs and expensive government programs and say, taxpayer, here you go. That money is back in your pocket.
Right. So if you're, a senior and you don't have kids that you need to stick in daycare, well, maybe you can spend a little bit extra at the grocery store. Maybe you can save a little bit for a rainy day. It doesn't matter. It's your money to do with what you want.
Right. The goal that the Conservatives are going to have is to lower interest rates by balancing the budget, making mortgages more affordable, which will help to decrease the price of houses. And it will lower the cost of borrowing for people that actually have to, which, we know that Canadians are on average spending over 100% of their paycheck, which is terrible. That means everybody's borrowing. And they're trying to make cost of living cheaper for everybody. And let the people that have those extra expenses deal with them within their own budgets. So this is what they're trying to do. Like, you don't get to say, we've destroyed the country by putting in all these policies and, don't vote for the Conservatives because they're going to cut all these terrible policies we put in to make you completely reliant on the government.
Well, but the other thing is, Freeland will tell us, the Conservatives are going to cut. But she doesn't tell you the other part of that, which is that you won't be paying as much in taxes.
Right. Because taxes always have to pay for government programs. Right? And this is the problem, because the Conservatives always end up looking like the bad guys, no matter what level, when they bring in fiscal responsibility, because Liberals or NDP go on a shopping spree when they're in government, and they destroy the budget, they destroy the deficit, and then there's nothing left to pay for. And then all they do when the Conservatives get in power, and you'll see this, is they'll criticize, oh, look, they're abandoning Canadians and yada, 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 yada. Well, they wouldn't have to if you didn't put in all these stupid programs that tax people out the ass. So I think Canadians are going to get it, because Conservatives are going to be pretty upfront about it. Are they going to say, we're going to cut dental? No. What they are going to say is, we're going to cut all the stupid waste that you put in, the 33% increase in the public service. How about that?
It's up to almost 40 now.
How about cutting all those salaries? How about that? That averages probably around $100,000 a year.
Each.
That would be a real nice chunk to cut, and it won't make any difference as to how much this government works, because then they have to go out after efficiencies and make what the government actually does more efficient. And then that costs the Canadian taxpayer less money. So there's a lot of things to do before they get to cutting programs.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, I don't remember a government so indifferent to the plight of Canadians. Her advice of cutting Disney Plus is cold comfort to the woman who's putting water in her children's milk. The cost of some produce is up 94% since she got here. They can lower the cost of food, of gas, of home heating by canceling the increase instead of quadrupling the tax. They paused it for one region where their MPs revolted. Where are the rest of their silent MPs who should be speaking up for their neighbors that are asking to cancel the increase?
Home Minister for Finance and Deputy Prime Minister.
So I love that Melissa went after the other Liberal MPs. That was great. Because she said, oh, well, they carved it out for a region where all of the Liberal MPs were revolting. Where's the rest of you? Why aren't you acting on behalf of your constituents?
Yeah, because if the stats are correct at this moment, about 50% of them are going to be losing their seats.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not sorry.
Like, that's a lot, man. That's a lot.
That's like half the party. Like, that's crazy. It's over 80 of them. And
if Jagmeet ends up campaigning well when the election happens and they do pass the Liberals, you're looking at an 80% drop in seats for the Liberals. Like, that would be insane. No one's going to be getting their pension then.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to being out of touch with regular Canadians, let me tell you what was out of touch. It was having a temporary leader who charged 20 grand to move into her temporary house and then charged Canadian taxpayers more than $5,000 for bed and bath linens. That's for towels and sheets. And Mr. Speaker, what Canadians need to know is these Conservatives would cut childcare, they would cut dental care, and they would cut the carbon rebate people are getting.
So who Chrystia Freeland is referring to is the temporary Conservative leader that was in place after O'Toole. So her name was Candice Bergen, and so she was like the interim leader in between O'Toole and Pierre. So was that wasteful? Yeah, it was wasteful. Is that standard practice? Don't know. But you really want to quibble about $25,000 when Trudeau has spent millions of dollars on his vacations over the years? Are you really wanting to have that conversation? And let's not forget the dry cleaning bill by the Governor General, and I think that was somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000. So, yeah, let's as you said, Freeland, those that live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones because you live in a big ass glass house.
The honourable member from Calgary Midnapore.
After 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, scandal continues to follow them. With the ArriveCan app, Liberals insisted there were no forged resumes. Fact, almost 40% of the resumes GC Strategy sent in were forged. Wow. Liberals insisted security was never compromised. Fact, almost 80% of all contracts did not follow security protocol. Liberals insisted procurement rules were followed. Fact, the system was rigged in favor of GC Strategies. So I have a question for this Liberal government. What kind of operation are you running over there?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Stephanie Kuzy really likes being the agitator, doesn't she? You know, she's really good at that finger wag and that stink eye that you know, moms give their kids when they know what they've done and they haven't even told them yet. But it's good. Like, this is the thing. You got to hold these governments to account, no matter who's in power. And more crap is just being siphoned out of this ArriveCan app. Remember, we were in the same boat back in October. We thought this was just some overpriced app scandal, and it was just going to, you know, be here and then be gone, and then everyone would forget about it.
Nope.
It was just like the mold that was, you know, oozing out of the wall, that once you dig in there, you just find rot in the entire house. Who would have thought? Who would have thought a computer app on your phone may actually be the downfall of this Liberal government because of the corruption that it exposes?
Well, maybe that's the only good thing to come out of COVID.
There you go.
We could take these guys down.
And if that's the case, maybe $54 million worth it to get rid of Trudeau? Time will tell.
Mr. Speaker, what we expect from the public service is to implement contracts based on government policies that follow the rules and procurement policies. And Mr. Speaker, when we were aware...
I'm going to ask colleagues to please have an opportunity so that I could hear the answer from the honourable member, the honourable Parliamentary Secretary from the top, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When our government released government policies during this global pandemic to help save Canadian lives, we expected the public service to implement these contracts following the procurement policies and rules set out by this government. Mr. Speaker, we are concerned with some of the initial findings. So is the CBSA president. That is why she has already implemented measures, including calling in the police when necessary, as well as conducting more internal audits, and there will be consequences for anyone who did not follow the procurement processes.
Interesting. Three of our least favorite Liberals are in one shot there, where you have Gerritsen Souza and I'm not even going to dignify her name.
O'Connell?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've not heard good things about her.
No. And it's funny, as she was speaking, Souza's in the background looking kind of meek the whole time. She's, oh, well, you know, this is why, you know, the president of the CBSA and Souza's just like, oh, not really. Because he's in those meetings, right? He's the guy that's always saying, well, this isn't about ArriveCan, right? But, yeah, something is rotten. Something is rotten, and there's Liberals that know. And it's going to be interesting to see how far up the chain this goes.
The honourable member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Vito Lakes.
Well, after 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, we have a Prime Minister who's been caught misleading Canadians multiple times. Most recently, it's his $84,000 gifted vacation to a luxurious Jamaican villa. Now, this is what he told Canadians, was that he was paying for it, but we don't know what he told the Ethics Commissioner. But now we do know that, in fact, it was a gift. He didn't pay anything. He took an $84,000 gift. The Ethics Commissioner said that, unlike what the government House Leader said, the trip was not pre-cleared. So when will this minister and this Prime Minister start telling Canadians the truth?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, of course, the member was able to hear this directly from the Ethics Commissioner this morning, but he appeared at committee and has been very clear on this matter. He confirmed that the office was consulted by the Prime Minister's office before the Prime Minister and his family went on their vacation, and he confirmed that his office provided advice on this matter and that the Prime Minister took the advice and went on a Christmas holiday with his family, Mr. Speaker. The Commissioner told committee members that as far as he's concerned, there is nothing further on this matter.
So, yeah, it's as expected, this was going to turn into kind of a nothing burger, but it's just one more example where if this was so innocent, Trudeau, why don't you just tell the truth? And it's
because he knew how it would look, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure he would know how it looked. So, which begs the question.
Why'd you do it?
Right. Right. But
like vacationing is more important to this guy than a lot of things.
Well, and expensive vacations, right? So he would rather, say, Canadians can't tell me what I can and cannot do. It's not about telling you what you can and cannot do. It's when you accept that office, you accept that there's a responsibility to conduct yourself in a certain way.
But he's a spoiled little rich kid. What the hell does he care, right?
Well, and that's what we're seeing, right? And we're also seeing that's why he's not leaving the leadership of the party when he absolutely should. I think every political strategist believes that he actually should vacate the position so the Liberals aren't going to do as bad in the next election. Most political strategists believe that the Liberals are going to be losing the next election. That's not really up for debate. What is up for debate is by how much. And the problem is with Trudeau at the helm, he's one of the least preferred candidates to actually lead that party into the next election. But he's saying, nope, it's me. And the problem is as we heard, the Liberals are now suffering from their own their own ineptitude and their own hubris, because now this guy's in, they can't get him out.
Yeah, because they have nothing in their governing documents that says that they can call a leadership review whenever they want.
So, what happens if they go through the next election, they lose, and Trudeau's still there? They can't conduct a leadership review.
Honestly, though, I think when the Liberals lose the next election, that Trudeau will step down because, and this is the only reason, because he will win his seat again. And that would mean he would be the leader, possibly, of the opposition. Or maybe not. But he would have to face Pierre Poilievre as Prime Minister.
Right.
And that would crush his ego and drive him mad.
Especially if he wasn't the official leader of the opposition.
Oh, that'd be even worse.
Especially if he had to look over and see Jagmeet as the leader of the official opposition.
As much as I hate Jagmeet, that would be beautiful just to see Trudeau squirm.
I would love to see question period one time when they had to do that, and Trudeau only gets 2 questions because, he's the third or fourth party. But anyway, that's it for us for today. But join us tomorrow night for committee as we listen to the Ombudsman from the Office of Procurement, who is a government watchdog, and they put out a scathing report of the ArriveCan app and GC strategies and how those contracts were handled. So we will see you tomorrow night, and it's going to be a good one, folks. I can feel it already, so we'll see you there.